Hey gang, welcome back. Don1NC in the community was asking, is it possible to toggle between weapons by pressing a specific button? And the answer is yes. There are two ways you can go about doing this. Let me pause real quick. I'll break it down for you. All right, and we're back. So one of the quick ways to do it, if you accept this limitation, so you have an option which is called the button press. And you can map, in my case, I map to the R1 and the L1 buttons. You could map basically a switch to this weapon set. So what we have here is we have basically the button. We have it set to switch mode, always activated, which means it could be activated anywhere in the level. You want to put these at the beginning of your level, by the way. And then we have the weapon set switch item, right? In this case, we want to actually set that to switch mode too. All right. And what you have here is that, so here's a weapon I'm shooting, and if I press the R1 button, you can see it switches now to that weapon set, which is set 12. And if I press the L1 button while holding the fire button down, by the way, you don't have to hold them together, but you can see it switches to weapon set 12. So you can basically, you have weapon sets, or you can switch between each of the weapon sets on a button press. Technically, you could map all kinds of buttons, so that would do your weapon switches. And then what we have is the square button for us is essentially our shooty make shooty face button. And so you can see maybe a little bit easier here. So that's my starting default weapon, but then R1, boop, boop, boop. And then L1 switches back to this. So you could go crazy with this. Like, that is a way of doing it. The limitation is that you only have so many buttons on the controller you can map to. But you can see here, you have your buttons here. So, and that also means up in here, you need to set in controls. If you want to use the additional buttons, you have to set your buttons, the amount you want. Excuse me. And I think that's fine. Oh, these might not be, no, they should be remappable. Yeah, so you might need to increase the amount of buttons you're using. So here you can see I have the L1 R1s, even though they're grayed out. But here it's pretty easy. These are just debug tags, so I know what's going on in terms of text. And this is all pretty straightforward, and you connect these to your player character. All right, so that's one way. So let me disable this. And the other way we can go about this is, see here, turn that off because I don't want these activating. It doesn't really matter, but whatever. Click, and we'll grab this little setup here. So now the short version is that it will be much easier to do this when we have the version of the engine that has variables and events. So in the interim, though, this is what you can actually do in the latest version. So, all right, in this particular setup, what we have is we have the same thing. We have the R1 button, and then we have the L1 button. So, and we have the same tags, but in this case, we do something a little bit cheeky, right? So, and it's set to switch mode, always activated. And then we have an item spawner. Now, one of the cool things about the item spawner is it spawns items. And so we have two item types here. One is the 00 star. So one item type is essentially a power up item, and the value is set to 1. So this means it just will give you enough power to go to the next weapon set. And then we have another item type, and this one is set to -1. So now you can go downwards in your weapon sets, right? And so what you can see happens here is, so I'm shooting, and I press the fire button. And every time I press I'm shooting, and every time I press the R1 button, I am upgrading my weapon sets. Now, if I press the L1 button, and you can see the logic working there, I'm going backwards in my weapon sets. And then when you get to the very bottom, you can't go past that. So, but now this gives you the ability to at least go backwards and forwards. Now, the drawback with this, and there's a couple things with setup. So one is that this is still based on items that have to fly through the level, right? And so what you want to do is you want to make sure you have nothing on move direction. You want the force to be 9999, 999. That was to be nines. You want the radius to be 0, so it's infinite, and you want no attraction time. And what that means is that, for instance, as the level progresses, let me see if this will work. Does this work? So, okay, so here I'm pressing the button. So you do get a delay, unfortunately, the further you get into the level. Now, I think you've got a vertical shmup, so it may not be all that bad. I mean, here, like, you can see, press the button, and then it was about 2 seconds. Press the button. So not the end of the world. It's going to be a little laggy in that you can mask this by creating a little on-screen like power thing, like a little circular power thing. That's a particle system. There are ways you can work around this, but essentially this gives you the ability to go backwards and forwards through your weapon sets. So those would be the two caveats that you have. Both perfectly acceptable ways. I did try to think about if there was a way there are more complicated ways to make it maybe a bit more immediate. You could kind of do it with enemies and states, but let me just save you from tearing your hair out because that's a very tough road. I do have a video in which I implemented the power down system. I'll link you to that as well. That and that is a way that you could kind of carry the power ups with you the whole time. But the caveat with that is you only have so many times you can use it. Again, you could get to the end and then have none left. So maybe your gameplay is that you only get so many weapon switches in a level. You could put in like 40. Most people probably aren't going to hit that. But that comes with its own sort of set of drawbacks. So they're all little bits of limitation. Again, this will be easier in the next version, I should say, in the Shmup Creator version that has variables and events. That's not the next version of Shmup Creator, but we're working on it. So I hope that is helpful, and I will talk to you soon.